So if you go online, you should be able to download drop-down menu .zip. It should consist of a HTML file and another image. Now when we look at this, we just have a standard image and we have some text and we have some drop-down menus. So you can actually build these from scratch, or what you can do is you could go online. There's lots of drop-down menus you can actually utilize in your final project. So if you want to use a drop-down, we could quickly Google and we can do CSS drop-down menu, and there's a number of tutorials and there's code out there. So there's also a menu maker. So once again, just like other generators, there's also menu makers out there. So let's actually just click on one of these and see what happens. So here we have drop-down menus that you may want to utilize, and you can download some of them. Some of them may cost you, others not so. So there's lots of resources out there. Now if we look at the code that we currently are working on in this particular example, and I'm going to use Dreamweaver. I'm just going to be using it for the coding. So here at the top we have some embedded styles. Then we have a list. It's an unordered list. That's how you generally create menus. You don't use tables. You don't use images. Okay, so now if we continue looking at the code, so right at the top we have embedded styles, which are within the style tag. Okay, so now if we continue looking at the code, so right at the top we have embedded styles, which are within the style tag, which in turn is within the head tag. Then in the body we have an ordered list. There's our unordered list. Now for example, say if we were to just get rid of the outer div container. I'm just going to get rid of this, the outer. Let's see what happens. Okay, this is what it appears like then. Okay, we got part of it, so you could see that. So if we go back, and I've just put the code back in, takes us back to the drop down. So the way this is structured is we have a list of items that are going to drop down. So we can see, these Kofu, Kafir, and so on. So these would actually drop down. So now within that we have identifiers, IDs. So the first one is menu 1. Then we have another one for menu 2, menu 3, and so on. And we also have class menu. Now when we look at the top, we have a class menu. This has been styled. It's stating whatever we're going to display has to be floated left, and this is what the padding is going to be. And if there's any cursor, it's set to default. Now on the unordered list, we once again also have positioning, absolute positioning. Now what exactly is absolute positioning? There is a video online which you can go to, but you can also go to ravkang.com and you can go to CSS positioning, and this covers the different types of positioning that's available. So static is just stays there, nothing happens. And if we were to change this to relative, it's going to be relative to which container it's in. So I could say I want a top of 100, 200, and then I view it. So it's relative to what I'm in now. Absolute is exactly where you want that. So let's refresh it and view it. So it's absolute to the browser. So these are different types of positionings that you can play with, and there's also coding that can be generated. This is just a simple demonstration of positioning elements, but you can go online and look at other available sort of tools that you may want to use. Now if we go into the code, we have dot menu ul li. Now if we look at that particular example.
But sir, this looks like the CSS code is in comment. So how it is active we are using, you know what I mean?
That's not commented. Well, CSS, it's not annotated, no. Are you saying it's annotated?
Yeah, it's in the, the bar between from the beginning and at the end.
So what happens when we hover over it? We could see there's a unordered list. Right at the top we're going to have the ID menu 1. These are the identifiers or the links that appear. So Giza pyramids. It's going to have a particular style to it, and it's going to be placed here. Now that's going to be under menu 1, class menu. So menu 1 here we have, and class menu, so it's going to be floated left and there's going to be some padding. So that's going to be displayed automatically. But now when we hover over it, where is that activated? That's actually activated in this section here. It's saying the div, and there's a menu with it, and there's a pseudo class which is hover over. So whenever the hover over event occurs, it's going to basically activate anything within that, in those braces, those curly braces, which is generally drop the content down. So it's going to say padding, display block. It's going to give it a border, so you could see a slight border on the left and the bottom. So that's where the border is coming from. And it's also going to give it a color. So when you hover off it, or when you hover onto it, this is where the list is actually activated. So you could see the color changes. This is done by this, the background color changes. I could change that to red, and we could preview that now. Whenever we go over the list, it's changed to red. And I always recommend, highly suggest, strongly suggest that you play around with this and try to understand it. What would happen if I just get rid of the border bottom? It removes the border. So if I get rid of this, so if we first quickly look at it, we could see the border on the bottom left and the bottom. Yes, see that sort of slide. I'm going to change that to red and do the same thing with the border left. I'm going to change that to red too. And now when we hover over it, you can see the border is now red. So whenever you're looking at existing CSS code, try changing values around so you understand that. Not just trying to copy. Don't just try to copy a block of code and hopefully magically it'll work. It's not always going to be the case. You need to understand it. So that's how you would generally do drop downs. So there is an example provided to create basic drop downs. So in terms of the assignment, that's going to be basically virtually the same. It's going to be slightly different, and I'll cover that next.